everybody, Anthony Dodge, Model Train Outsider here, wanting to pass on to all of you Happy New Year's greetings, this being my last video of 2019, and I want to take a few minutes and look back on the year 2019 as we head into 2020. Anyhow, a year ago at this time, I was, exactly a year ago, I had already made the decision to overhaul the table. I had built this table 2 years ago and had a certain design in mind and changed it. And for a year, all of 2018, I had debated where to put my train station. For those of you who don't know, I am building the city of Delmenhorst, or at least a section of the city of Delmenhorst, a facsimile of the city of Delmenhorst. This is a town that I first visited in the early 2000s, and I've been to about 15, 16 times. I did an exchange program with students from my high school that we took to Germany as a student exchange program with a school over there. So we would go over there for 3 weeks, and then their partner German students would come to Toledo for a couple of weeks. But it was a great program. But it's where my love of trains started. I started riding the train system in Germany to take my students to different places while we were living over there. And I just, wow, trains are amazing. I didn't grow up loving trains. As I explained in the first video of the show, I had no connection to trains. But it was riding trains in Germany, and I wanted to recreate that, both the city of Delmenhorst, so that this, my adopted German hometown, could always be with me. And I came up with the idea of having the Delmenhorst station and the trains, the two things I fell in love with in Germany, this town of Delmenhorst and riding trains. So I've got German trains and a couple of others that run around. Anyhow, I've told that story many times. I apologize. So the big issue a year ago was where to put it on this train table. I had two options. Right behind me, where I have a narrow but long place where I could have fit the station, and the platforms would have been at scale length, so the trains would have completely fit on them. But I really would have been awkward trying to build the city of Delmenhorst out. The other option was the long end down here, which is obviously shorter than this narrow section. But down here, which is where I elected to put it, where I could then build out and make a more accurate version of a section of the city of Delmenhorst. The negative of that is my platforms are technically too short. The trains definitely overlap past the platforms. And a couple of purists have given me grief about that. Your train doesn't even fit all the way on the platforms. I know, I'm sorry. That's why I'm not a civil engineer. But anyhow, that's what we did. Building the station. The whole thing is I built the station before I ever thought of making a YouTube video or posting anything on YouTube. And so nobody ever saw the tedious work, because I'm building all the buildings of Delmenhorst scratch built. I am making 100% exact replicas. Scale, in a couple of cases, I have kept to true 187 HO scale. And in other cases, I've fiddled with the scale. Sadly, my platforms just don't fit. My two longest trains are longer than the platform, so it obviously doesn't look realistic when the trains stop there. But it is what it is. I had two choices. None were the best, unless I had totally gutted this basement and totally rearranged everything, which was not in the budget or the cars. I was lucky enough that a couple of years ago my kids had grown, because this basement was a basement. Then we converted it into a children's playroom because we had kind of a small yard when my kids were little. This was a big space for my kids to set up their Transformers and Barbie dolls and play camping and everything else. It was a nice big open room for them to play in. It was finished. Then when the kids got older, we turned it into the kids' entertainment area. They had their TV and their video games, and we had a library down here. And this room kept going through changes. Anybody knows, a couple of years ago we had a major flood and the basement was trashed. I lost a lot of books, I lost bookcases, and we had to redo the basement. But by redoing the basement, I was able to remodel it a bit, and the kids were grown. Two of my kids had moved out, and nobody was using the space. So when I got into model trains, my wife said, why don't you just build a nice layout in the basement? Cool. And that's where this began. So I went through many designs, but yeah, I didn't know what I was doing, and trying to decide the best functional layout, and I decided I wanted this big giant C because it gave me a command center in the middle, and I finally decided to place Delmenhorst there. So a year ago is when we finally made the decision the Delmenhorst station will go over to the side, and I'll try to put some pictures up here or video to show kind of where it's at.
Alright, so that's a look at the bus center in place. Nothing too fancy. One thing I did do was, sorry for the shaking camera, but I got people on all the buses and some passengers. I'll be adding more. Those two black boxes there will be replaced with the digital signage made by Remote Sign. And you can see it leads right into the train station. And quite pleased with how that's all looking now. Obviously, I will be putting in concrete looking streets and walkways to make it look realistic, but that's down the road. I really got to decide exactly where this is going to fit in. But this is very much coming together. My friends from Delmenhorst have said pretty much that, yeah, it's like looking home. So I'm pleased with that. I've just been throwing stuff around. One goal I'm going to do is I got to start adding the sculpt-a-mold I bought earlier this year and fill in the terrain around here and then back here. But I've just been monkeying around, just trying to make some scenics, just to make the table look a little bit more. On the other side, nothing's really been done. And then I've done a lot of track cleaning. Obviously, one new thing we added was the parking area over here. So I built an off-ramp over here and can now park more trains over here and pull other ones back into the layout, along with the ones that park at the parking area over here. So again, it's amazing how much it has changed in a year, and at the same time how little drastically has changed. But the station, the bus center, were the big accomplishments this year.
One of the first main videos we put up was me tearing down the old layout on this table and putting the station in over a several week process. Fortunately, a year ago we had a lot of crazy weather and I had a lot of days off of work. I didn't have to go into work. The weather was so bad they were closing everything down. So I had lots of days off or trapped in the house with snow. What the heck, I'll work in the basement. I got a lot done, and we finally got the station in. I got the slopes in, very happy with it. And then I go through months where I don't work on anything in particular. And we went to Germany, which was awesome. That was maybe the biggest highlight of 2019, was going to Germany. And then when I came back from Germany, I finally began working on the platforms and the canopies. And that was a big deal as well, because I had to scratch build the canopies to make them look as close to the canopies. There were model kits, but they didn't exactly have what I needed. Also, I wanted to put lighting and sound in, which made it more obvious that I had to scratch build. And that was last summer, and I finally got it done in September, I think, where I finally installed them, wired them, and everything lights up. The speakers work. I'm thrilled with it. I had a couple of people give me grief and negative comments or whatever about, well, that looks like crap, or you didn't do that properly. It worked, so I must have done it properly. It sounds great, I think. It's too tinny. I don't know about you, but on the Delmenhorst platforms, the announcements are tinny. I don't want pure epic sound. I wanted that tinny, scratchy, I wanted that sound. It's more realistic, at least on the platforms I'm familiar with. Anyhow, and then again, some months off, and we then started building the bus depot here recently. Through the fall, there's a major bus center right in front of the train station, so I completed that and showed that off in a recent episode of this show. And I'm quite pleased with it. I've got more to do with it. It's not permanently in placed yet. I've got to put lighting in it. And a gentleman named Dave Schultz from Remote Signs made me some, I haven't put them in yet, but he custom makes digital signage. So I'm going to have this departure sign that's at the bus station rolling digital with full action as soon as I work up the courage to get that all in. But I got to get everything in, make sure it's all wired up correctly before I put those. So sometime in the next month or so, I will be posting a video showing these amazing signs and show them at work. So I think that's it for what I've done on the layout. Recently, I've just been throwing more wargaming scenery on. I've dug out a box of my trees and just planted trees around. Nothing permanent. It's just to throw some things on there, make it a little more scenic, especially since I've been doing running sessions again. Added a bunch of cameras around. I bought a bunch of cheap webcams and did a 4-part view video where you could see 4 different angles. And I got a lot of positive feedback on that. I was quite thrilled to get that. And so that really seemed to spark a little bit more juice here. I'm currently up to 6 cameras now. But be that as it may, didn't acquire a lot of trains this year. I'm never going to acquire a lot of trains. In fact, I look back, I have about 12 or 13 trains / locomotives, which really is a lot for the 4 years I've been collecting trains. I look back at what I've paid, and no wonder I'm broke. I've spent a lot of money on trains in the last 4 years. But anyhow, the year started off, I think if I should have looked up some of the old videos, but I think the first thing that we started the year with was I finally got my IC2 control car. There's a long story with that. I should have gotten it a year ago, but I didn't finally get it until like March of this year to complete my Intercity 2, my IC2 train consists of control car. There was a screw up in the order and my reservation got messed up and I had to reorder, and Miraklin had stopped making them and then made a second round, so it took a few months extra to get it in. Then right before my wife and I went to Germany, I bought a BR-101 locomotive. BR is Baureihe, just means class in German. Building row is what it literally translates at, but Class 101 locomotive, which AC Euro Trains in Stockton, California, posted for me. He fixed it up, made it a AC Miraklin MFX chip, so that would work on my layout. We bought some IC1 cars, Intercity 1 cars, to go with it, and had a nice little train to run around here. And then while we were in Germany, I bought a new IC2 locomotive, a BR-1465 locomotive, and replaced my Bravo, which nothing wrong with it, just the Miraklin was a little more special to us because that locomotive, as well as the cars, are the actual cars my wife and I rode on in Germany. And the Miraklin does a little bit more than the Brava does in terms of bells and whistles. But the Bravo was still an awesome one. So we got that going, and we just did a check-in and running session with that. So you can go back to that video if you want to see it in action. And then for my birthday / Christmas, I got a new BR-101 by Miraklin, which is the 160th anniversary of Miraklin. Miraklin started as a company in 1859, and so they're celebrating their 160th anniversary. So I got this new deluxe locomotive, which is probably one of my coolest, if not the coolest locomotive I now own. And that's now pulling the IC1 train. So my Pico AC Euro Trains fixed up for me is in limbo right now. And lastly, we got the Miraklin Christmas train to go around the tree this year, and that was kind of nice. So that was it for picking up trains. So looking ahead to 2020, obviously it's just going to be, I've got to finish the bus station and get that wired and set exactly in place. I really have to decide exactly how I want the road system working in this park. And I probably won't do a lot other than the wiring of lights and the signage that Dale Schultz made for me from Remote Signs. I probably won't do much other than that until summer. I'll be going to Germany again. We'll be leaving at the end of May. And one of the big things about that is whenever we go to Germany, we either go to Miniature Wonderland, the Hamburg thing, and that's always cool. I've been there 4 times. But this time we're going to be in southern Germany, so we're going to go to Porsche's Traumwerk, Dreamwork. And it's a big toy museum, but in the middle of it he's got a giant all-Märklin layout that he had custom built. So we're going to look at that and video that, and so you can look forward to a video on that in June. This is different. It's not nearly as big as the Miniature Wunderland in Hamburg, but it's still a really cool place, and it'll be my first time seeing it live. So you can look forward to that. Otherwise, it'll just be slow building on the layout as we go along. There's only one train I am specifically looking at buying in 2020, and that is the Märklin ICE4, which won't be due out until November of 2020. Pico just released theirs, and it's awesome. And Märklin keeps delaying theirs, and sometimes I lean towards maybe just break down and get the Pico, so I've got an ICE4, but I'm holding out. I'll wait for the Märklin and get the ICE4. And so it's been a wild ride this year, because again, this show is just for silliness. I have to keep the blue language out, but it's fun and games. It's a vlog. It's me messing around, and yes, telling people what I've done recently if they're interested, and if they're not interested, they don't watch. But anyhow, I just wanted to say Happy New Year to everybody, and thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you in the new year. So goodbye and happy trains.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and days of old lang syne? For old lang syne, my dear, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup o' kindness yet for days of old lang syne. We twa here run about the braes and put the gowans fine, but we've wandered many a weary fet since days of old lang syne. And we twa he pedalled in the barn frae morning sun till dine, but seas between us braid he rode since days of old lang syne. For old lang syne, my dear, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup o' kindness yet for days of old lang syne.